Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
And we find ourselves once more in the towering stacks of the library. And so, Kay, as my campaign manager,
yes.
How are our points? How is our points? What are our numbers like? Just numerically, statistically speaking.
The spread is negligent, and...
Negligent. Interesting, okay.
The good thing is that the response is pretty much close to 100%.
I think
we're only one
good.
respondent off from 100.
So, then, what would you advise as the next step? Do we heavily discipline the one negligent?
I mean, I guess you're not supposed to. You're not required to respond to a poll, or an inquiry. It's not like it's an election or something where you have mandatory attendance.
I wonder if it's becoming clear to the readers, as it is to myself, that I really just don't know what I'm doing. I'm campaigning for something here in the library in order to elevate my status. Mm-hmm. I believe that my only competition is the incumbent, which is you.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a new position, isn't it?
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm doing an entirely new imposition.
I got your census form into my postbox. I still haven't filled in my own yet, but I'll get around to that one of these weeks.
What did I say?
I think you said that you thought you would be very suitable for the position, and we're all in favour.
See, now, if I have my support, then I really can't fail. Gosh, I can't even remember writing that. That's curious. That's funny how these things happen.
It was written in blue ink, so that might have had something to do with it.
This library and its various inks and nooks and crannies has sort of altered my perception of reality over the year and change.
Yes, that's how it works. Like when you're in a library, like time seems to have no meaning almost.
Yeah, right. You just lose yourself
in
among
the... We have some books which are specifically renowned for getting lost in.
Like literally sort of in the style of that fantastic music video by Aha, suck you into a two-dimensional paper world.
Pretty much, yeah.
Sometimes I think about the readers at home and how some of them may recommend to a friend, oh, there's this cool literary podcast, you should check it out. And then, this is their first episode. And for the first 5 minutes, it's like being dropped in a reverse episode of Twilight Zone.
Where you have no idea what's going on.
And then you gradually realize that that's kind of the point, because neither do the artists themselves.
Yes. Ooh. You make it sound like we're making this up on the spot.
Certainly not. We are a literary review podcast, and we review books that we have seen the cover of and that we've ostensibly read. And what do we have in store for our readers this week?
This week's book is by Sharyn McCrumb, Bimbos of the Death Sun.
Yes, and if you looked at
we announced it last week, and
Yes, as we do every week, at the end of one episode, we announce next week's. And as the readers at home will remember, last week we mentioned Bimbos of the Death Sun would be this week's episode, and so therefore it is. So I imagine that everyone who's been following us for a while has indeed now read Bimbos of the Death Sun, just as we have, by Sharyn McCrumb. And I noticed that Sharyn is spelled with a Y, which is a really cool spelling.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And for the readers at home, if you don't already have your copy checked out from your local library, you can look down at your podcasting device right now, and you should be seeing the cover of today's book. Otherwise, you can check the show notes for an image and a link. You can check us out on Twitter, where this is episode 77, Bimbos of the Death Sun, and on covermyasscast.com, episode 77, where you'll find the book as well.
Yes, it's a winner of the 1988 Edgar Allan Poe Award for Best Original Paperback Mystery.
See, now, you're frowning at me, but I actually like that, because far too often we see books that credit themselves with, by an award-winning author. Yeah, but not this one.
Yes.
Right?
Well, the thing that I was worried... I mean, Edgar Allan Poe is not particularly known for his mysteries, is he?
Oh, I don't know. There was The Murder on the Rue Morte.
Yeah.
That...
I mean,
it's more supernatural, but...
Right, and I mean, I kind of associate him with goth poetry, but what we have on the cover here is a true bimbo, and one of the Leotard ladies.
Yes, that's right. Because I thought this was a very cool book, that it starts off with Bimbos of the Death Sun, and you've got a voluptuous lady with big hair encased in one of those...
how the hair just completely fills the helmet.
Yes, it's got one of those fishbowl helmets, right?
It is. I really wonder how she gets it in there, and then how it gets fluffed up like that, because...
I sort of imagine that maybe it's like a vacuum pump. Maybe she has very slicked hair, and then...
Kind of voluminates, I suppose, is the word for it. And it's got this cute little antenna on top and some hoses and stuff. And even her air bottle, which I suppose maybe it's a vacuum bottle. It's got a little
It's wrapped
leotard covering.
Yeah, the leopard print little wrap around it.
Oh, yeah, leopard print. Yeah, the leotard is, of course, the outfit. I think it's a bikini that
I
she's
think it
wearing,
is a bikini.
not a leotard. And the gorgeous, like, thigh-high silver... Well, no, sorry, thigh-high.
It was
knee-high.
an itsy-bitsy teeny-weeny yellow black rosette bikini
very
that
good.
she wore. Thank you.
For the first time that day.
Yeah, she was going to wear a new one when she's at a convention.
But she's got some earrings on and beautiful red lip, which, I mean, that must be murder, getting your makeup on and then having to put that helmet on.
Hey, maybe it just takes care of it itself. Maybe there's a whole makeup station on the other side of the head, and she just sort of flips it around in the morning, and then
that
it
would be
gets.
clever.
There's one of those like auto makeup things in the film The Fifth Element.
Oh yeah, when
that
it flashes and then suddenly...
and she's got smoky eyes, and
Yeah.
so convenient. Used by Liluminai Lekarariba Laminai Chai Ekvat Sebat.
Wow.
I'm that kind of nerd because
How many times did you have to practice that before you could say that?
I mean, not as many times as I had to practice saying Llanfair Gogerig with Ndrob Llanticilio Gogogoch, or, but a lot. But, I'm into this stuff, right? There are things that I'm into, and that sort of attracted me to this story, which is about a convention, a fan convention, which is all about being into stuff.
It's the big convention on Arcturus. What was it again?
Arcturus
16?
17?
I don't remember. The
There,
exact
anyway,
name.
it's CosmicCon.
CosmicCon, yes.
Yeah.
Which is like a great name for a con.
It is.
Arcturus 14, according to my
Arcturus
notes.
14, yeah, that's right. That totally matters because Arcturus 17 is obviously the party planet where the rival convention takes place at roughly the same time.
Oh.
FlagonCon, which is, it just has a bit more of a Dungeons and Dragons
Oh, I was wondering about that, yeah.
bent, but with a lot more booze, like a lot more
So it's
booze.
more like FlagonCon.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Flagon.
What's a flagon?
That's what I was wondering.
Flag and... no, it's you can keep your fancy ales, you can drink them by the flagon, but the only brew for the brave of true comes from their green dragon.
The flagon with the dragon contains the brew that is true.
Yeah, but the vessel with the pestle contains the pellet with the poison.
That's the one. And for a change, we're not actually describing the internet, but referring to, what's the name of the movie again?
Is it the Witchfinder General? Is it the Peter Kay one? Are you
no,
sure?
Witchfinder General is from...
The Peter Kay one, though, isn't it?
Is it? I mean, Witchfinder General is from Good Omens.
Ooh, this is gonna haunt us.
Yes.
Like, I happen to know that scene from Star Trek Enterprise, where it's played on movie nights.
No, it's the court jester or something like that.
See, I sort of imagine that when you try to reconstruct the history of Star Trek, and I know that we're delving into the book a little early here, it seems like a transgression, but this is actually from a panel on the internal consistency of the history of Star Trek, a panel held by several Spocks in proper costume, that's held at CosmicCon. Yeah, so we're actually staying on topic of the book, where if you look at modern depictions of Star Trek, anytime that they look back at old-timey culture, it tends to be like 20th century, late 20th century films. Essentially, it seems as if during the Third World War, all movies were erased except the out-of-copyright Paramount back catalogue that somehow just seems to crop up all the time.
Very easily, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's a certain obsession that they have with the 30s gangster movies and stuff
like
that.
Noirs.
The noir genre, that seems to come up all the time as well.
I mean, it certainly does in this one as well. I mean, it is an old-fashioned, whodunit murder mystery.
Oh, absolutely. The book really starts off with a description of the con and the things that are going on, like the panel. And I really like the fact that they had all the different Spocks. It's not like you have 4 the same Spocks, like you have 12 slave Leias and 7 male slave Leias. But in this case, you had...
Hut Slayer Leias, I believe the correct convention.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Because that's a gold bikini with a chain. That's an assassin's outfit if ever I saw one.
Very true. But in this case, you had Spock from the original series, and then you had Spock from the Next Generation, different Spock, and then you had Spock from the later movies and
from the Kelvin timeline.
And you had Romulan Spock and all the they were all different Spocks.
Oh, you had pilot episode Spock.
Oh. Who was he played again by?
No, that was the same. That was also by Leonard Nimoy. But in his very first appearance, he was much more emotional and had a much rougher haircut, and he laughed and he cried. And
then they kind of dropped that whole thing. I guess he was still more. Was he canonically half human at that point?
There's a lot of Spocks running around at CosmicCon, which
trying to out-logic and under-emotion each other.
Yeah, culminating in the secret Spock orgy, which is held sort of contemporaneous with the much more public Sephiroth orgy.
Well, yes, the Sephiroth orgy is always easy to find. You just like walk through the corridors until you find a whole big pile of swords outside a room.
Yes, exactly.
There's usually a trail of blonde hair, which is like kind of like dropped from various wigs. And
yes, exactly.
It's not hard to find.
No, you just stumble into that. Oh God, a doctor of our acquaintance told a story about he went to a doctor's conference. Speaking of the con theme, went to a doctor's conference and he was just starting out in the medical profession at the time and taking a wrong turn and opening a wrong door, thinking he was going to some panel room, and instead it was a completely dark room full of like naked people getting it on, and all of them were in like the bird-like plague doctor masks.
Oh,
and they all sort of turned and looked at him. And he just quietly closed the door and left. Never was to find out what the context was or what was happening.
Just entirely naked, except for
the plague doctor masks. That was their
thing. I guess it's.
Yep.
Were they using protection?
I guess that's what the plague doctor masks. Maybe they've got little ones down for their jennies.
Oh God, that would be horrible. Novelty condoms in the shape of a plague doctor. You'd have this like this big beak sticking out. And
yeah. Listen, whatever people are into, right?
Also, a novelty condom should never be used for proper protection because they're not suited for that.
Very good. Like proper condoms are the best.
The Greek invented the use of the sheep intestines as a prophylactic, right?
Yes, that's right.
Several hundred years later, the British improved on it by taking it out of the sheep first.
Okay. That's awful. If you're not careful, I'm going to report you to Kevin, the rules volunteer.
Yes. Oh, we saw him before, didn't we?
Yeah. At whatever the convention was called, in Times Without Number, episode 70, by... I forget their name. Yeah, also took place at a rather fun convention where they also had
what is it with that conventions always seem to bring out the best and the worst in people?
This CosmicCon distinguishes itself in some ways because despite the fact that it had Kevin's the rules volunteer and the secret and the Sephiroth orgy, just as the other ones did, like I liked that it had its own sort of vibe. Like, so one of the panels was called the speculative literature, which I thought was really, really fun because aside from being about like fiction and literature, it was about specifically literature that uses the same consonant a lot.
Yes, I had a hard time picturing that very well in my mind.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it became a lot clearer when they... I mean, I thought it was like art imitating life, but when there was a live podcast recording of a rather popular show called Cover My Assonance... where every episode they try to...
asinine each other?
Assonate. So in this case, it's using the same... No, it's pretty asinine. But they try to like focus on a single vowel, which is very tricky.
I mean, what did they do after the 5th episode?
These are galactic space languages. They have many more than just 5 vowels. And besides, in English, you have more than 5 vowels. You have 5 letters for vowels, but...
And you can always move to Finnish.
Yeah, I mean, best not. Well, like the latest episode is actually in Dutch, our home language, where they recited a piece written in the 80s by some comedians that had only the vowel O, known as the homoporno-moordcomplot.
Wow.
No, it's great.
Let me translate that.
Yes.
It was like the gay porno murder complot.
Yeah.
That must be so hard.
Well, considering the topic, it sure is. And a recitation of one of my favourite, like, French novelty songs, La Maman d'Amandine, Amandine's mother.
Yeah.
La Maman d'Amandine veut que son Amandine, Amandine a dit non. L'amant de la maman d'Amandine a dit né, redemande a dit né. And it's all about...
I mean, to me, every French song sounds like that, but...
certainly with the recitation of the... old Chinese poem, The Lion-Eating Poet in the Stone Den. Sure. Yeah. Which is like, the thing that CosmicCon is known for is rampant homophonia. It's just, I mean, it's their signature trait, and I don't know if I should approve it, but everyone's a homophone.
It seems to draw the crowds. It brings out the best in them, so to speak.
Yeah, it certainly does, until this Murder Most Foul.
Yes, it's one of the attendants from the speculative literature panel by the name of Reggie Rogers, who happens to be one of the con staffers.
Yeah, working closely with Kevin, the rules volunteer, but...
Yeah. He finds himself... Well, actually, someone else finds himself murdered in the back office at the con.
And it's one of those locked door mysteries, isn't it?
I think it's Con Ops, where he's sitting behind the computer. I think that's the same computer.
Because that's the little office where a lot of the con volunteers like offer services to folks who need it. Like Lost and Found is there, or if you're looking for people, or
all the equipment is in the right rooms at the right time, and that the drinks are there, and that the tables have been set, and they just basically do the day-to-day running of the convention, the actual at-con running of the convention, making sure that everything runs smoothly.
Oh, and more power to them. Like that is
they're a hard-working bunch. Where it turns out that Reggie Rogers was murdered.
Oh, gosh. According to the cover, it's most fun, but I had a hard time seeing how that was the case.
Especially if you're Reggie. It turns out he was apparently working on the registration system when he was murdered, because that's the application that is turned on the computer.
Now,
at CosmicCon, which is taken over Arcturus 14 completely, there is no such thing as a police force, because basically the con is the planet.
Yeah, it's one of those fully urbanized planets that over time CosmicCon has grown to such a degree that it's just absorbed the entire culture.
Yeah, the rest. The con is still held only once a year, but basically the entire planet is dedicated to making it work. It's you've got the staffers, the caterers, everybody. Anybody who's something on staff pretty much lives on the planet.
Yeah, and they've got these fun sort of legal loopholes where parts of the convention are on super trams that speed around the planet and try to cross the dateline in reverse. So it's basically always January 17th or whenever it is that's supposed to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the problem with that, of course, is as we soon enough discover, despite the fact that the staff pretty much all live on the planet, there are still some accusations going around about pre-reserving the best hotel rooms at the con.
Yeah. Now, isn't that always a problem?
It is always a bit of a thing. It's
at venue conventions.
Yes, where there's by the time that the general registration opens, half the hotel is already filled up with staffers and their plus ones.
Certainly when they're popular conventions where it's a bit of a gold rush.
So yes, Reggie Rogers finds himself murdered. Well, he didn't himself find himself murdered. Someone else.
Look, we've been over this. Yeah.
Right,
so sign up for the speculative literature if you.
And of course, something needs to be done to solve this murder.
Yes. Now, in the absence of a police force, what are they going to do? Are they going to go for the Sherlock Holmes cosplayers? I mean, they certainly want to, but
they'd love to. But no. The Leotard ladies performed the Rite of Summoning to bring in the greatest detective to ever stall the halls of CosmicCon. Self-acclaimed bimbo Dick Powers is being brought in.
Yeah, and for clarification, that is a bimbo. He's not Bimbo Dick. So at first, when I saw this cover, and you've got the voluptuous lady,
yes,
the Leotard lady,
that must be the bimbo,
like a traditional cheesecake, a pin-up presentation of a woman
with those boots and with that hair and those lips and those bracelets and that leopard bikini, leopard bikini, leopard. Let's go with leopard.
Yellow and black rosette bikini, but the bimbo is in fact
Dick Powers.
That's right.
Who was the other person on the cover, which we kind of glossed over so far. But let's go back to that for a moment, because he's wearing his lumberjack shirt, his 70s glasses, his stout pipe, jeans, and he's sitting behind Reggie's computer, which I assume it is, with a rather smug look on his face.
I know that face of his, and the Leotard lady is looking at him so swooningly and adoringly.
Hello there,
and he's like, yeah,
he knows he's the shit.
Yeah. I admired, by the way, how the writer managed to literally convey that he just kept on rumbling after he said
yes.
While a bunch of other people were talking as well. That was very impressive.
Especially the fact that he could do it while talking.
Yes. Very few people can ventriloquize themselves. Yes. Now, that's a real art.
I mean, it's kind of like a combination between Mongolian throat singing and ventriloquism. And, that's anybody who can do either is right up there in my book. And if you can do them both at the same time, then I take my hat off to you, sir.
I'm sure that was one of the panels at the convention. But rather than distract anyone from their convention fun, Dick Powers sets off to solve this murder while the rest of the convention is still going on. So he has his task cut out for him.
Yes, he does an investigation. He pokes around the body, how the murder was committed.
Yeah, it was rather bloodless, right?
It was. He was just slumped over dead behind the computer, apparently, but clearly murder.
Now that sort of confused me as well, because there wasn't a pool of blood and there wasn't a murder weapon, but everybody seemed convinced that this had to be murder because he couldn't possibly have just died on his own.
Well, yes. So he does a little bit of sniffing around, leading him to his first suspect in the murder, a person by the name of Cacodorus Simini.
How was that again? Cacodorus
Simini. Okay, so they're both words for malodorous and smelly. Yes,
okay.
It's like Cacodorus. It's Cacodorus.
Oh, Cacodorus.
Yes, but Cacodorus.
Oh, I get it. It's like Theodore.
Yes, Theodorus.
The odor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's the one. Simony, I had to look it up as well. Simicene. It means smelling like bugs.
Ew, like bugs?
Yes. You've seen the person around a convention, It's like the fact that they...
Yeah.
I mean, they can afford a ticket to the con, but apparently they can't, find the time to take a shower or at least, have a French shower and liberally douse themselves in deodorant.
So more power to Dick Powers for actually braving the atmosphere and getting some information out of Cacodorus Simicene.
Yes, he does a little bit of sleuthing on the computer, and it turns out that Simicene has definitely been complaining about the pre-reserving of the best hotel rooms for the thing, and Reggie Rogers has been his favorite target for reserving the rooms for staff. And they're like, well, of course staff needs good rooms because they need to be be at the con themselves, So it's like it only makes sense that they have rooms. But why does it have to be the best rooms? Are they compensated for it? And it's like, why is this coming out of the convention budget?
So Cacodorus Simicene, he's the
obvious target.
The obvious target, and even though as far as Dick Powers is concerned, he's a suspect, but that doesn't mean he done it. Regrettably, there are wannabe detectives among the staff and the attendees as well, and one of them, Gregory Gumshoe, is the loudest voice pointing at the obvious culprit, Cacodorus Simicene, over Dick Powers' protestations that it's still an ongoing investigation, as he puffs his pipe and he adjusts his fucking cardigan, which I bet he's wearing.
Oh, well, the cardigan is... What's a cardigan again?
It's like a type of... like a button-up jumper. I think that's a cardigan.
Okay.
See, I like little sort of clothing affectations like that. I like a waistcoat. I like a Spencer sometimes. So I also appreciated this other group. I like the Leotard ladies. Yeah.
I mean, they have their own thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I liked also the representation of another group at CosmicCon, the Jodhpur jocks of Jabroni 9.
Oh, yes.
You'd imagine jockstrap jocks, right? But
right.
They went for Jodhpurs. The horse riding pants with the sort of flared sides.
Jockeys tend to be short, very fit, lightweight guys.
Hey, you don't know what kind of animal the Jodhpur jocks like to ride.
And for some reason, all those animals always smell. Why do they always have these weird...
what?
I mean, riding animals tend to be a bit whiffy.
Most animals smell. I mean, apparently bugs smell, otherwise there wouldn't be a word for Simicene.
You have a point. But Dick's investigation continues, and he finds that there's a little few things which are quite wrong, because it seems that there was a computer hack at the same time as the murder. And he does a little bit of forensic sleuthing on the computer, and he finds that there's some evidence that the registration system has been hacked with unclear intent at first.
Yeah, because what could be the motivation?
Well, one of the problems that the convention has had is a concept known as LadenCon.
Yes, from a certain German convention of our beloved acquaintance,
which we shall
whose registration system has been kissed by a hill witch and is cursed to.
It's the fact that the moment registration opens, it gets swamped. And
the net result is a sort of a fandom myth. Because the German word for loading is laden.
Yes.
And so you wind up in a loading screen when you're trying to progress to completing your registration.
It's a classic DDoS attack, except it's people actually sitting there reloading.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it's unable to distinguish between a DDoS attack and thousands of enthusiastic fans trying to. So that certainly didn't occur here. I mean, after Cacodorus Simicene's sabotage of the registration system, which is what was on Reggie Rogers' screen as he was murdered,
which turns out to have been a fake. The new suspect, which suddenly comes into view, is a man by the name of Atrocious Harcourt.
Atrocious Harcourt.
Yes. Another one of those fan types that you see walking around.
Yes, of the New Hampshire Harcourts.
Yes, who is found to be the
and he insists on it's Atrocious. It's not Atrocious, it's Atrocious.
Atrocious, yes.
Thank you.
Bouquet.
Yeah. Arcturus.
Who finds to be the person who committed the computer hack in order to be able to get in on the run on registration to scalp the best hotel rooms. And it turns out that Cacodorus was only framed for the murder of Reggie.
Cacodorus was just trying to get ahead of everybody else.
He was basically complaining, and he'd been like whining at Reggie, and Atrocious was Atrocious.
I mean, even though he's the villain, we still got to like name him correctly.
Yes. Yeah, Atrocious. He was like he heard that Cacodorus was like complaining to Reggie, and like I'll come back to you later, and thereby leaving his olfactory evidence at the crime scene, which he thought would be more than enough to
indict him.
Not counting on Dick Powers to be summoned to the con to actually solve the problem.
So Gregory Gumshoe is humbled. He becomes Gregory Humbleshoe, and Cacodorus Simicene is exonerated, and Atrocious Arcut is properly dealt with. I believe he tries to make his escape, but the Jodhpur-jocks of Jabroni 9, also themselves quite fierce bimbos.
Oh, totally.
In the original sense of the word, we're just teaching a panel on Aikimbo, which is the bimbo martial art.
Ah, yes.
And able to use his energy against him, they subdue Atrocious Arcut. And you'd think that the story would end here, and that the Leotard ladies of
Lascivious Prime.
Prime, that's the one. Yeah, that's right. Would unsummon Dick Powers and send him back to whence he came until he was needed again. When Reggie Rogers rises with delight on his face, and we finally realize why it was considered so obvious that he had to have been murdered, because he this entire convention, we've described it as something that we as Earth people know, but of course this is CosmicCon, and these people are of a huge variety of different kinds and species and cosplaying one another. And Reggie Rogers was one of the, I mean, there are immortal species out there. Yeah. Literally immortal, unable to die. So therefore, if one is dead, they must have been killed. Now, this is where the title comes in as well, because it talks about the Death Sun, right?
Yes.
The Bimbos of the Death Sun.
Yes.
Murder most fun at the Ultimate Fantasy Con.
Yep.
So this is where the Rampant Homophonia comes in. This is a misunderstanding because they have a German name. They are the Todessöhne. They are the sons of death, and they are like immortals who like to cosplay as mortals. Now, of course, Todessöhne sounds like Todessonne. Todessonne in German is the Death Sun. Death. I mean, in English it works so well. The Sun's Death and the Death Sun is kind of confusing as well. I mean, here was someone who was just cosplaying as a mortal, thereby being able to be murdered. And it could not have worked out better for him, because he got the full mortality experience, being murdered and investigated and getting to be...
and of course, the Freddy Futbucker comes in.
One of the Jodhpur-jocks.
Yes, that was yet another panel. It was the murder investigation panel. It's like the murder mystery party, but this was the murder mystery investigation party. Yeah. Murder most fun.
And it was fantastic, because the whole thing turns out to have been a gigantic ARG, an alternate reality game that nobody knew they were playing, which is the best kind.
Exactly, when you get roped into it and you go oh, everybody's excited and gets their lumberjack shirts in a twist in the case of Dick Powers. Who was of course one of the game in on the game.
He knew that this was going to happen. He knew it was going to be summoned, because as he walks off into the portal, sending him back to wherever it is that private eyes are kept between missions. Like, he turns back and he winks at the audience and then ascends into Jinhood or whatever the fuck happens to it.
I aspire to that.
I thought it was a thrilling book.
It was fantastic.
It went all over the place, and it arrived at a place of just, I mean, it really was murder most fun.
It was delightful. I think I'm so glad that we actually reviewed this book.
Yes, yeah. I mean, sometimes I wonder. I mean, you tell me what the next week's book is going to be, and sometimes I wonder, is that such a good one? Should we really do that? Obviously, we always do, but this time I'm really glad that we went and did it.
It's like
Bimbos of the Death Sun by Sharyn McCrumb. You should be proud of yourself.
It was a lovely book. So,
how are we going to rate this book? What's a convention number?
Oh, anything up to, I don't know, 40?
Why up to 40?
I don't know. What's the longest running convention that we have?
Oh, I mean, the first one was Worldcon, I believe. That's the first science fiction convention.
Okay. When did they start doing conventions as a thing? I don't know.
Well, you know what? Hey, just about every convention in 2020 is not doing one in 2020. There are some conventions that number their editions by the year in which they take place.
Yes.
And there are some that just have ongoing numbers which are going to skip 2020.
That's going to mess things up.
Well, like a Western elevator for a building with more than 13 floors doesn't have a number 13 sometimes.
Often not, no.
And Chinese ones often don't have a number 4.
Because it sounds like death, I believe.
It's the same word for... Like 2020, out of 2020, how are we going to...
Let's go vision, like the American vision standards, where 2020 vision is considered to be normal vision.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'll give it 18/20 out of 2020.
18 out of 20 out of 2020, and good luck to the maths nerds. Hopefully you'll find a panel at the convention of your choice. Speaking of reviews, you can, even if you're very nearsighted as I am, you can look down at your handy podcasting device and you'll hopefully see some opportunity to leave a review for us. We'd love to hear from you at covermyasscast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter. You're very good friends at covermyass. Cast on Twitter as well. Got it right. Thank you. Yes, thank you for cheering me with your face, Kay. That really helps. We'd love to hear from you. Certainly, if you have a suggestion for a book cover that you would like us to review but not read. And speaking of covers, what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Yes, next week's book is by Tim Desmonde. Inside Robin's Too Tight Tights.
That about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read. Owned by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay. And remember, we only judge a book by its cover. Inside Robin's Too Tight Tights.
Was it something with Desmond Tutu in there?
No, it's like, that's his name. It's Tim Desmonde.
Okay, it's weird how your brain does that sometimes. Desmond Tutu is not something that you really want to associate with a fun
book. Also not someone you'd like to see in a tutu, I assume.